Welcome to Supernaturalcollabrationmedia, where usually you send in your story and I read them. But now we're going to take it to the next step and have you come on and talk about it with me. My first guest is someone who reached out in the beginning and had me on their show, so I thought it was fitting to have her on our debut episode. Host of the Twilight Tonic Paranormal Podcast, Dee Dee Moonflyer. How are you?
Good, guys. How are you?
Very good. My guest co-host Jake from Iron Rose Customs won't be joining us. His little one is just getting over strep.
That's horrible. I used to get that as a kid. Boo.
It is terrible. Luckily, she's doing much better, but he says hi and hopefully he can join us next time.
Hi, Jake.
First off, let me just say thank you so much for coming on.
Well, thank you for having me on your first show. Wow. That's on. I feel honored. Welcome to the world of podcasting.
Thank you so much. We're still learning. So, how did you come up with the name for your show? Because it fits it perfectly.
Actually, it was my husband. We both enjoy mixing cocktails once in a while. And I'm kind of old gothic lady, and we were brainstorming, and he kept saying something tonic, and finally he said Twilight Tonic. And that's how I got the name. My husband basically picked out my podcasting name.
Good on him, because it's an excellent name.
Thanks.
You were a dancer before this, correct?
35 years, yeah, and all through childhood.
How did you go about transitioning from dance to podcasting?
Well, I knew I didn't want to dance forever. Obviously, your body can only take so much. And I was ready to get out. And many years ago, it was probably 2010 or 2009, I heard Jim Harold for the first time. And I never listened to podcasts before that. And I heard his podcast, and it kind of set that passion going quite a bit. And I was like, what a unique way to reach out when you're wanting answers to something that you've had your whole life. So when I moved to Fort Wayne from Dayton to here, my husband goes, what are you going to do now? What kind of hobby? And I was like, well, I want a podcast. And he was a professional musician for as long as I was a dancer, if not longer. And he works at Sweetwater Sound. So he came home one day and had the podcasting equipment for me. And that's how I started.
35 years of dance is a commitment, so the passion you have for it must be huge. Did you know right out of the gate that you were going to go down the paranormal route? Or was it something that interested you, or is there more of a backstory behind it?
Yeah, absolutely. My mom's whole life changed when she saw a UFO when she was pregnant with me. She was 6 months pregnant with me driving New York State. So that kind of set the whole thing in motion for her. As a child, I went to meditation classes, I went to spiritual classes, I went to mediumship classes. She was obsessed with ufology like I am, because of some of the things she saw all throughout her life. After she saw the UFO, it changed her course completely. So I wanted more answers, and I wanted to feel more comfortable with stuff that has happened to me throughout my life. And that's why I chose this area, was because I hear so many unique and so many different things that make you feel comfortable. And you want to talk about them because you don't feel like you're just on the outside of society at that point. Because if I didn't grow up as such an open-minded mother, or a mother that experienced things, I'd probably be more afraid of this than I would be accepting of all of this.
Before this event, was she a believer in the paranormal, or was she kind of leaning towards the skeptical side?
She was extremely Catholic. They are in the part of New York where they're kind of on the border of Canada. She saw the UFO between Potsdam, New York, and St. Regis Falls. So that's it's a tiny, tiny town in the middle of nowhere in New York on the St. Lawrence River. So they were extremely French Catholic, and it just changed her life. Prior to that, I don't even think she thought about it until she saw it. But there were other witnesses. There was a car behind her, and they pulled over with her. So they all saw it. They got out of the car, came outside of their cars, watched it, and it was completely silent, and it just took off. And this was in 1966 when she saw that. She was 6 months pregnant with me. And when I've been doing research, there were 80 to 90 sightings that year alone in that part of New York State. I think my mom has always had some form of abilities to know there are more things around us than just what we see.
Very open-minded.
Yeah, I think she's always suspected that since childhood. And since some of that ran in her family, kind of spiritual things ran in her family. For instance, her grandfather read tea leaves and talked about the imps in the barn. Her grandmother's always talked about seeing relatives that had passed over. So they were, even though they were Catholic, they had their spiritual sides as well. So they were it was almost like they were mountain people quite a bit too. I mean, they were up in that area of the Catskills or Appalachians, or it's beautiful up there.
A lot of things happen like that because of the big night sky. Everybody sees something. I mean, even where I'm located, not a lot of streetlights, big open sky.
Yeah.
You see some things moving up there. Have you ever had any guests come on with like the same type of situation? Because I think that's the coolest thing about the paranormal and being online. There's so many like stories.
Oh yeah, especially when it comes to abductees and UFOs and things like that. Everything seems to be very similar in a lot of ways. So even with children, they talk about their childhood and things they saw, the very similar things. One child might see a clown in their room. One child might see puppets in the window when they were children. So a lot of this stuff happens when they were children up to their adults. And it's really weird because UAPs, very similar stories. Most of them are very silent, and they appear when you least expect them.
So the next thing I want to talk to you about is you have so many guests on your show. And I heard you on another show while I was doing my research, and you were talking about vampires. All of us growing up, we just think they're blood-sucking, garlic-hating undead. But hearing you talk about the different versions, what really are vampires?
Oh my gosh, there's so many different legends and stuff, but I don't know if you've listened to my first set of podcasts actually had a vampire on named Father Sebastian. He's a really cool guy. He's very interesting. He's really dedicated to what he does. And he was really fun too, because I learned so much. But there are energy vampires where they suck your energy, basically. They could be anybody. They could sit next to you, take your energy, and you feel exhausted or tired, or you can be sick being around them for a long period of time. And then you have people that actually think they can drink your blood. And then they have bloodlettings, I guess, where people agree to do this. And then you have the spiritual side. There's a whole spiritual side to all of that as well. For me, I like to think they really exist because in so many different cultures, for instance, you see things about vampires in Asia and in Europe and in the Americas, and even some native legends have vampires. So sometimes I've always wondered if there's not a culture of them of some kind. New Orleans is just really famous for it. People claim to see them all the time and being stalked by them. So, and it could be too, some people are just playing a part. So,
I mean, this world is so old. So many crypts and tombs that haven't been found yet. It's cool to think what could really exist out there. Sleep paralysis is a topic that we spoke about on your show. I'd like to dive into it and hear your story about when it started.
Oh gosh, I have several. My sleep paralysis started fairly young, but in my 20s it got really bad. And it would often happen when I felt something was watching and coming. And I think it has to do with my mom's sighting and me growing up with seeing the grays and things like that. And I think part of it is you can't move. Like I was fully awake, but it really started when I was 16 in New York State. when I don't know if you remember the 80s. I think you're quite a bit younger than me, but we wore really thick eyeliner. Okay.
I was born in 91, so yeah, a little before my time, but I'm a big fan of the 80s and the style.
Yeah, you're a baby. And I used to like take off my eyeliner and stuff, and it'd take me forever to go to bed because of that. My mom would always be, come on, come on. We were visiting my grandparents, and I know I was awake. So I go to bed, and before I could lay my head down, I couldn't move. I couldn't move at all. But I could move my eyes. And in the corner was a small gray bald creature. And for the longest time after that, they continued after that, but at that moment, I was so scared. I cannot express to people. The whole experiences from childhood then changed over to something really scary and dark and not kind sometimes. And it started to come toward me, and I broke out of it somehow. I basically flew over my mother screaming. She got sat straight up, and they didn't know what was going on. I told her what I saw, and she didn't say much. She was like, I believe you, I believe you. And I looked for that little gray creature. And of course, I'm a kid of the 80s. So we had something called Salem's Lot, a bald vampire. And that's the only thing I could think of. Even though I grew up with ufology and my mom showing me the grays, I didn't put them together at 16 at first. I was like, I don't understand what this gray thing was coming at me. These big eyes. And
Wow, that's creepy.
yeah, then me and I brought my brother with me to every nook and cranny. And I don't know New Hampshire, but we have little Catholic churches everywhere in New York State in the little towns. And they were always open back then. And I even went to the basement of the church. I went all over the woods looking. I'm going to find this thing. So after we were starting to drive home from New York, I put two and two together really quickly. Like, why didn't I think about that? I know what that was. And that kind of started the sleep paralysis, and it got worse in my 20s and 30s.
Is there anything that triggers it, like stress or anxiety, or is it just something that reoccurs?
I usually know it's going to happen when I have this funny feeling. I always tell people it's like I'm being watched. And that's the only time it will happen usually. I feel like I'm being watched. And afterwards, I feel like running. And if I get out of it and I can't remember anything, I'm going through it, I want to run. And it's not, there's a medical sleep paralysis too. But this doesn't feel like that. When you go to the doctor, you describe what's going on, where they want to take sleep studies of you. This is a definite, either I feel like I need to go to bed, it's almost like I'm being called to bed, or I feel like I'm being watched. And then all of a sudden I get very tired. And then I usually know something is going to transpire, but that something's going to happen that night. And that's the way I identify with it. Now, as I've gotten older, they've gotten less. So I always thought that was interesting. So, and it's horrifying. It's not pleasant.
No, it doesn't sound pleasant at all. I couldn't imagine going to bed at night knowing that was going to happen. But you fight it, and you're not afraid to talk about it.
Well, and I think some of it is, whatever it is, it never killed me. And I've experienced some crazy stuff from it. And I think they're the same beings that I had contact with as a child. So I think it's a lifetime thing. And even my husband experienced strange things with me. Like about 3 years ago, we were taking a walk at night, and I'm still perplexed by it. And he is too. And it was a weird January or February night. I think it was around that time period where it was 60 degrees, that really weird thing that happens once in a great blue moon. And so we put on some sweaters and we took a walk, and it was late at night. And I love owls. I've always loved owls and birds. So we're walking and we're going around the block, and everything's quiet. It's dead quiet. Just a beautiful night. And so we look down the road, and there is a huge owl in the middle of the road. We're talking the size of a child. a 3 foot to 4 foot owl. And I'm all excited. I'm like, oh my God, look at this owl. And my husband's like, that's really big to be an owl. That is a huge owl. And we both started walking because I couldn't wait to get near the owl. We have no memory of passing the owl, seeing the owl up close. We were on the other side of the neighborhood, next thing we remember. We didn't say anything to each other. We walked home, didn't say a word. The next night, our friend came over, and Andrew goes, I hear something really weird. And I looked at him and I go, you don't remember the time that we passed the owl? He's like, no.
So you all experience a time gap.
We don't missing time, probably. We still cannot, we still don't understand. I mean, I kind of, in my heart might know, but you just don't want to say it, even though I've done hundreds of interviews with the people that have had the same experiences, time missing, things coming to their window. And I often will call them, in my experience, I call these experiences the window knockers, because since childhood, they always came to my window. Visitors are intruders. I call them intruders as well. Anything that comes and visits you without your permission like that, to me, is an intruder. So I know about them, and that's why I started the podcast, because when I hear other people's stories, I don't feel alone. And you can feel very alone when you have those experiences. Now I'm like an open book. Everybody knows they know my business now.
That's a very good thing. You've opened up a line for people to share their experiences, maybe even open the minds of the people that say it's not real.
Come to my house. No. You'll be visited a lot.
It seems like animals and kids get a lot more experiences. What do you think the reason for that is?
Animals have, I think, a very open, different sense than we do. Cats are meticulously fantastic at spotting spirit. My dogs are. Birds are highly sensitive. I can be having a disturbing dream, and my birds in the living room will be disturbed. I have to come calm down my cockatiel every time. My cat, if she's watching something, I usually know there's a visitor right away. I always have to have a cat. They're kind of watchful. And if I see something, usually the cat is watching in the same direction. Now, I love my house now. It's a 1938 bungalow. And I have walk-ins, like some activity, but I have a ghost kitty that my husband saw when we bought the house. And I was in here painting, and I saw this black and white cat. I didn't say anything because I saw it go through a wall. I was like, uh-oh, I got a ghost kitty. I've never had a ghost kitty. I was all excited. So the next day he's painting, and he goes, honey, did you let that black and white cat in? And then he's like, where did the cat go? I said, we have a ghost kitty. He's like, described the same cat, never said a word to him the day before. He saw the same cat. And the cat will play. And I think sometimes she's playing with it. And other than that, when something else, when a human spirit walks through the house, feels very different. And the animals feel it, particularly the birds, right away. And in Fort Wayne, we have a lot of limestone rivers and railroad track history here. They killed a lot of Indians here. And so when something walks through, it's pretty strong here. And as a matter of fact, the first time I visited him before I moved from Dayton, it was hilarious because I brought one of my dancers with me in my company. She was in my company. And we were standing there talking in my husband's back. And we lived in an apartment that was like a loft apartment. You had to walk upstairs. And all of a sudden, there was a woman at the top of the stairs that had 80s hair, like feathered hair, and a little pink headband and a pink puffy vest jacket with a striped shirt that they wore in the 80s, kind of standing and staring at me and her. And she saw the same thing. We both were like, at the same time, said pink jacket. And the lady didn't move. She just stared at us. And my husband looks at us and he goes, I don't want to know what you're seeing right now, but you two see the same thing, don't you? And we're both like, pink jacket, pink jacket. And as As soon as we lost eye contact with her, she was gone. And I was like, great, where are you moving me to? Like, Dayton is very active too. This is a pretty active spot as well. This is a really funny story. And my grandma always told this story. My dad was born in Arkansas and on the border of Oklahoma through there. Well, his great aunt was a medium in the Ozarks. And my grandma talks about the trip that she went on to meet this lady that was my grandfather's aunt. And apparently she was an herbalist. She did readings and she was a medium. So when you got paid, she wanted those pretty little compacts, Victorian compacts in 1920, all these compacts. She loved them. So she collected compacts. And so she had a bunch of those. And she told my grandma her marriage wouldn't last. And of course it did not. And a bunch of stuff about my grandma's life. And she turned around to them. She goes, do you guys want some honey with breakfast? And they said, sure. And apparently she went outside, climbed up a tree where there was like a bee's nest and got some honey down for him. And she was no spring chicken. Yeah, I guess she was a trip or little tiny lady my grandma would describe. A little tiny lady with old-fashioned clothes on with her hair pulled up in a bun. And I guess she was a character. And I always thought that was really interesting. And I told my dad, I said, that is one lady I need to find out who she was. Because I have no idea about that. I only know so little about that side of the family. I only know they're from Oklahoma and Arkansas. My grandmother's mother was full-blood Oklahoma, Cherokee. I have relatives on the Trail of Tears, and there's a lot of French on both sides. So my mom was Seneca and French, and my dad was Cherokee and French. Stuff in there. But I'm not sure anymore because, the information's not there, but now I can get it. So it would be interesting to trace them all back. I only traced my mom's side back to France. And those were, they were wild women. They owned brothels in France. I applaud them in the 1700s. They didn't want to get married, apparently. They were like, now we're up in our own business. Well, I say, keep up the good work because we need more people like you to come out and help everybody. I think the more we understand and the more we hear, the more stories we hear, our fear and our truth is going to be less. And if they want to catch my episodes, it's on Spotify, iTunes, all of the podcast. I'm audio only right now, working on not being just audio only. But please come join all of us. I think podcasting community is awesome. And I welcome you, and I can't wait to see more of your episodes.
Thank you so much. Once again, Dee Dee Moonflyer, check out her podcast, the Twilight Tonic Paranormal Podcast, and reserve your seat at the table at Supernaturalcollaborationmedia@gmail.com. And we'll see you on the next one.